Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this big fella right here, The Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. This is a Barnes & Noble exclusive game that is being released by Games Workshop, and it is a competitive game where the Fellowship of the Ring, up to 5 of them at least, all of them are available, but up to 5 of them are trying to race to get the one ring into Mount Doom on their own. Doesn't quite seem logical, but let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and we'll come back with some final thoughts in just a few moments. Let's get to it. So here I have set up for you a 5-player game of Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. You can play from anywhere from 2 to 5 players with this one, with of course 5 being the maximum, and I don't know that you'd want to play it with any more than that. Now, with that having been said, it does come with 9 different characters that you can play with. The ones I have set up on the board are Gandalf, Sam, Frodo, Legolas, and Gimli, and they all have their own special ability that they do at the end of during the course of the game. Then there's a pictorial representation of the model on there, and then a screen cap of whatever is the character from the movie. But you can also play Aragorn, Boromir, Merry, and Pippin as well. So you do have all of these 9 characters, the 9 characters from the Fellowship of the Ring that you can play, but you can only use 5 at a time. Around the edge of the board, you have all of these different locations which match locations that are on the board, and underneath those locations are cards that are item cards, and one of those item cards is the One Ring. The whole point of the game is that the members of the Fellowship are trying to individually find the One Ring and take it to Mount Doom, thus having won the game by themselves. This is not a cooperative game, and so you do need to understand that on the very outset of the game, that this is a competitive game. You are going to be stealing cards from each other. You are going to be fighting for that ring and getting it by yourself to Mount Doom so that you can win on your own. Now, Quest to Mount Doom is played over a series of rounds. Each player gets 1 turn during the course of each round. On your turn, the first thing that you're going to do is flip over an Eye of Sauron card, and that's going to tell you where the Eye of Sauron's gaze is going to fall during the course of your turn. So, if we flip over the Anduin card here, then the Eye of Sauron moves from Mount Doom over to Anduin, and if there's anybody there, then they're going to have to discard a card, and then they'll be kicked back to one of the 2 starting locations, either Hobbiton or Rivendell. After having flipped over an Eye of Sauron card, you're going to be rolling this die to determine how many movement points you have so that you can move throughout the course of the map here. Now, if you'll see here, each pathway has a number associated with this, is the number of movement points that you have to use in order to get from this place to this place. So you'll go ahead and roll the die, and if you get 6, for example, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. You never have to move the full complement of pips on the die, but it gives you the ability to move that far. Now, if you are unlucky and you don't roll something, for example, all of these are 2s, let's say you just happen to roll a 1, if that is the case, it's called second breakfast, and that basically means that you won't be able to move this turn, but you will be able to draw an event card in addition to the one that you automatically draw at the end of the game. So that does give you a little bit of concession for not having been able to move. But going back to the 6 that was rolled, Gandalf is going to go ahead and use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and end up in Fangorn. Now, whenever you end your turn in a place where an item card is, for example, right now Fangorn does have an item card, you are able to take that item card and add it to your hand from the side of the board. Now, you do have a hand limit of 5 cards, so you do have to be careful there. Anytime you would be drawing a card and it's going to take you up over that card limit of 5, then you would have to discard down to 5. After you have completed your movement, then you would actually draw an event card, and drawing an event card always signifies the end of your turn, and then it would become somebody else's turn at that point, where they would draw an Eye of Sauron card, and then roll the die, and then draw an event card. Now, the main difference between event cards and item cards are where you get them. Event cards are going to be drawn from the deck, whereas item cards are going to be drawn from these different locations that you're going to be stopping at the end of your turns. The other side of them, of course, there is no difference whatsoever because they're going to make up the bulk of your hand. You'll notice here that the One Ring is an item card that is at one of the locations randomly determined at the beginning of the game. This is the ring that you're going to be, this is the card though, that you're going to want to be able to find and then make your way to Mount Doom to throw the One Ring into the fires of Mount Doom so that it can be destroyed. But the effects of these different cards, first of all, you see that it says when you can play it. So for example here, Elven Boat here says that you can play it at any point during your turn. But then you have other cards like this says play whenever another player rolls a dice. This one over here says play this card instead of making a move roll. So there are a number of different times that you can use these cards, and there's no limit to how many item or event cards that you can use on the course of your turn. You just have to play them at the time that is specified on the card. And then of course below the line you have the effect that playing that card will garner you. Now I know that seems a little bit too simple, but that is exactly how the game is played, with each person taking their turn of drawing a Sauron card, Eye of Sauron card, rolling the die, moving their people around, playing event cards, playing item cards, trying to find the One Ring and get it back to Mount Doom. And until somebody actually accomplishes that, the game continues until one person gets that ring to Mount Doom and throws it into the fire. Well, that's about that for Quest to Mount Doom. Now, there isn't a whole lot to go over here because, as far as rules are concerned, because it's a very simple game. On your turn, you flip over a Sauron card, roll the die, move your guy, play some event cards possibly, or some item cards if you want to. Then you draw an event card and you're done. And you just keep doing that until somebody accomplishes the goal of taking the One Ring and getting it into Mount Doom. It is not a difficult game at all. It's very, very simple. Definitely a light family game that is very simple to teach, very easy to play. Now, with that having been said, I still didn't go over everything. Little things that happen if this happens and all of that kind of stuff. That's not my point here. I'm just trying to give you a general flow of the game so that you understand basically how it works. Now, the first pro for the game for me is the box insert, because I just want to give kudos where it is due, because this box insert fits everything perfectly almost. There's very little room for error here, and it holds all the components very nicely and neatly. Some of the card wells could have been a little bit deeper so that they don't shuffle around too much during travel, but with that having been said, I think this is a great box insert, and I think that's a high point, one of the high points for the game, so I wanted to mention it in my pros section. Another pro of the game is something that I've already mentioned. It's very simple to teach, very easy to grasp, and it's not difficult to play at all. Anybody, for the most part, anybody would be able to pick up this game from the rule book, which is pretty well written, and play the game with hardly any difficulty at all. Unfortunately, though, I think that's going to have to end the pros section, and we're going to have to move on to the cons section, which is going to, unfortunately, greatly outweigh the pros section. So my first con about the game is quite simply that it is a roll and move game. Now, they provide a caveat that if you don't roll high enough to move from one location to the next, or wherever you may be on the map, that you can draw an event card as kind of a concession prize for having been so unlucky. That's just not good enough. Why do we have a roll and move mechanism? Just give people different move characteristics. I want something else so that I don't have to base how far I can roll on whether or not I roll high or low on a die. That does not gel with me at all. And it's such an antiquated mechanic. I don't know why we are continuing to do this. But that was my first huge red flag. Second red flag. And this one happened even before the first one did, but the first one was big, in my opinion. The second one, also big. It is such an anti-thematic game. You are playing literally characters from the Fellowship of the Ring. The team of people that were sent to work together to get the ring into the fires of Mount Doom. And yet, this game puts you at odds with one another. Not only does it make it competitive in the fact that you want to be the person that throws the ring in, it makes it competitive to where you're going to actively hurt other people, stealing cards from them, making sure that Sauron moves to where they are, so they have to discard cards and move further away from Mount Doom and further away from the One Ring, or whatever it might be. You're actively working against your opponents in this game. Makes no thematic sense whatsoever. So why? Another con for the game for me were the miniatures. And now, this is where the rubber is going to kind of meet the road here, because Games Workshop is known for quality, well done miniatures. That is their whole shtick, almost. And the miniatures in here might be okay for some other company that's putting out a family weight game that's only going to be released in Barnes & Noble. But the miniatures that are in this box are in no way okay for Games Workshop. Poor Legolas, what's wrong with his head? He's got those things coming out of the back of his head. It just looks strange. And then there's Aragorn, who has that thing coming out of the side of his face, but it's actually just the arrows and what have you. And then there's Gandalf. The mold lines are so visible. Now, you didn't have to do a whole lot in putting these miniatures together, but where the mold lines showed up, oh my goodness, it's like they wanted you to see them, and they wanted you to buy more green stuff, so you had to fill those cracks in. The miniatures just are not good. They're okay for some other company. So I do want to make sure that's clear. I'm kind of holding Games Workshops to a higher standard because I think they deserve to be, because they've been so good in the past. We got this game in with 2 other games from Games Workshop, all in the same day. And those miniatures in those games, even the easier to put together ones, are light years better than this game. So this is definitely a con for me. Usually, you know, if you see miniatures coming in a box that has Games Workshop's name on it, you're going to be getting quality miniatures. Not necessarily the case on this one. Another con for me was the fact that they used screen caps from the movie for almost everything in the game. All of the location sites, all of the different cards that are used. Everything in this game is screen cap this, screen cap that, and that there's so much really good artwork out there for the Lord of the Rings, and I know that Games Workshop has the ability to do a lot of great artwork on their own based on the Games Workshop's other titles, you know, the 40K and Age of Sigmar. I just didn't understand why they felt the need to do screen caps on this while they could have availed themselves to the great amount of artwork that is out there, or just made some on their own because they're capable of doing that. The artists at Games Workshop are great artists, so why not let them loose? Don't understand. So unfortunately, this is an IP that I really enjoy from a company that I really enjoy a lot of their products as well, and they usually do a very good job with their miniatures, with at least giving a game that is that makes sense, so to speak. And this one just didn't find itself in any of those camps. So I'm going to have to sadly give this one a 4 out of 10. I did not like this. This is definitely a below average game for almost anybody, but the miniatures coming from Games Workshop especially were definitely below their average. So with all that having been said, I cannot give this any higher than a 4 out of 10. This is definitely a below average game. I really wanted to like this game because I love the IP. I love the company that made it. I love their miniatures usually. There's so much that I was expecting out of this game, and it just completely fell flat for me. and for everybody that I played it with. It was just a real disappointment. So 4 out of 10 for the Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. That's it from me. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.